like to call this meeting to order. On this evening, we are going to be electing our new chair and vice chair. And that's why I am starting the meeting in the chair seat. I'll basically get straight to the point. The first order of business tonight is we'll hold the election for the board chair and vice chair. And I would like to call nominations for the position of board chairperson for the coming year.
Nominate Kat Eddy for the position of board chair.
Second. Are there any other nominations?
Just a point, we don't need a seconder on any of these motions.
Are there any other nominations for the position of board chairperson? Okay, Kat Eddy has been nominated for the position of board chair. First off, do you accept the nomination?
Do I be honored to? Thank you.
Okay, I have to call for two more times. Are there any other nominations for the position of board chair? And for the third time, are there any other nominations for the position of board chair? Hearing no further nominations, nominations are not closed. I'll be happy to declare that Kat Eddy has been elected by acclamation to the position of board chair for the coming board year.
Thank you.
Gallery goes wide.
Now you can do your shuffle. Now you can do.
Oh, and now I've got to call for the nominations for vice chair. Good evening, and following in that vein, moving on to election of the vice chairperson, I'd like to call from the floor for nominations for vice chair, please. Trustee McMahon?
I would like to nominate Trustee Craig Gillis.
And Trustee Gillis, do you accept that nomination?
I will.
Following Kevin's lead, I'll have to ask two more times. I'd like to call for nominations from the table for the vice chair position. Being none, I'd like to call for nominations from the table for the vice chair position. And seeing no further candidates, and by acclamation, congratulations, Trustee Gillis.
Thank you.
I don't think we're gonna get too out of control tonight. Okay, thank you very much for your patience as we got the business on, and now I'll just move on to the appointment of signing officers. And that resolution or motion reads that the chairperson and vice chairperson, together with the secretary treasurer and the assistant secretary treasurers, be appointed signing officers for the district in accordance with the resolution regarding banking, which is attached to and forms part of these minutes. May I have a mover, please? Do we have Trustee Gladish, seconded by Trustee McMahon? Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. So back to our regularly scheduled agenda. I would like to thank you for re-electing me chair of the Board of Education, ST 72 Campbell River. I'm honored. And I would like to start this meeting by acknowledging that the Campbell River Board of Education is located on the territories of the Likoto Nations. I'd like to honor their ongoing commitment to helping walk alongside us as partners in the education of their children. And I would like to note that there is a short production delay between the live event that you are viewing and the meeting participants. And finally, that the question and answer function is open online for questions on agenda items throughout this meeting. And a final call for questions will be made after the last agenda item, and questions will be addressed at the end of the meeting. So moving down through the agenda, I'd like to move forward on to superintendent's remarks. Superintendent Manning.
Thank you, Chair Eddy, and I'd just like to start by congratulating Chair Eddy and Vice Chair Gillis. Looking forward to working with you, continuing to work with you in Campbell River, and grateful that you're here serving as the chair and vice chair of our board. Thank you very much. One of the things that I just cannot get over as the superintendent is just how stunningly beautiful this school district is. And I've had two opportunities now where I just feel like I have to share. I drive in to work every morning and I get to go along the waterfront and the spectacular sunrises that you can see on that waterfront are second to none in the world. And it's just, you know, I have them saved on my phone, and I quite often will look at those pictures and show them to others and send them to others and brag to others about what a great place this is and look where I get to work. So I'm very grateful for that. And another image that was absolutely stunning was sent to us by the principal of Sayward Elementary School, where a couple of weeks ago when we had that really heavy frost, an entire herd of elk were on the school playing field when she went to school in the morning. If you haven't seen the picture, I will show it to you. It's absolutely amazing. She took this beautiful picture, and my sister-in-law was in Vancouver for a conference this weekend, and she shared with the presenter the photo and said, "Oh, you got to see this picture of my brother-in-law's school district." And he said, "Can you please send that to me?" And she said, "Yeah." And the next day at the opening of the presentation, he started his presentation with that picture saying, "This is how amazing the schools in British Columbia are, and look at this amazing site that we have." So I just really wanted to share that. And you know, Sayward also has some other things going on that have the potential to be very amazing. I know we have a bit of an issue with bats there, but I think it's going to turn into an educational opportunity. And it's going to be fantastic for the kids and the community. And I think it's going to be a really great learning experience. And I'm looking forward to seeing how all of that unfolds. So
That's what it was next.
there we go. I'm grateful to live, work, and be able to play in this area. It's awesome. I did want to bring to the attention of the board some recent ministry announcements. They were special announcements that were made. One of which could potentially affect us in our school district, but they have increased the wages for early childhood educators. And now early child educators, there's a shortage of them in the province of BC, I'm sure in Campbell River as well. But with this increased wage, they will now have a competitive wage of approximately $28 per hour. So that should attract more people to those positions. And I know that we've had conversations with NIC looking at maybe developing more of an early childhood educator program that would maybe interest some of our graduating high school students. And that could be very helpful for the students here in our school district. Also, a big announcement that was made just last week is the grade 10 social studies curriculum will now include mandatory learning of the Holocaust. And that will take place for this 2025-26 school year. So they're taking a year to plan and implement it accordingly and appropriately. And this is ongoing work the ministry is doing to work on their inclusive diversity, anti-racism strong points that they're making in the education field. So that's coming very soon. And then under improved outcomes for Indigenous students, there are three major changes. Local education agreements called LEAs will now be mandatory to be in place in all 60 school districts. IECs, which are Indigenous Education Councils, will be mandatory to be in place in all school districts. And Indigenous students will now have a right to go to their school of choice. And school districts are expected to facilitate that for them, however they can make it happen. So those are three big changes that are as well. So big changes in the ministry, and we look forward to implementing those changes here, some of which we're already doing. So we feel solid in those areas. The last thing I wanted to talk about is what a school district's all about, and that's working with students. I had an opportunity last week to go over to Pinecrest Elementary next door and read to some grade 2, 3, and 3, 4 classes, some social stories, and have some great interaction with them. And this week, on Thursday, I'm going to have the opportunity to meet with the student leadership district council. And looking forward to getting to know them, asking them some questions, and getting their insights on what they'd like to see in our school district. And that will carry on for the year, hoping to have a session probably at least once every 2 months. So a total of 5 sessions working with them and looking forward to seeing what they have to say. So that's my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Manning. Moving on to approval of the minutes of the meeting of October 17th, 2023. The motion reads that the minutes of the meeting of October 17th are hereby approved as circulated. May I have a mover? Trustee Gillis, seconded by Trustee Hagan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? So moved. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, are there any additions or alterations to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, the motion reads that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated. Any mover? Trustee Briggs, seconder. Trustee Gladish, any discussion? All those in favor? And Vice Chair Gillis, on to report of board decisions from November 7th, 2023 confidential board meetings.
We discussed matters of teaching, administrative and support staff changes, and legal and financial issues.
Thank you, Trustee Gillis. There's no correspondence, public or agenda submissions. There are no educational submissions this evening. And down to 12A, which is electorate and board matters. Kevin, do I need to hand off to make this report?
No, there's no motion on it, so you.
There's no motion on it. So 12A is the board chair's advocacy day. So on October 19th, 58 of 60 school board representatives, chairs and vice chairs were invited and hosted by BCSTA in Victoria for an advocacy day with MLAs. We did attend questions period in the legislature, which was followed by a lunch at the Fairmont. We had a pretty good attendance, about 35 MLAs from both sides of the house. And the key themes were around student outcomes, recruitment and retention issues, both locally and further afield in the province, and of course, capital deferred maintenance and the needs for increased budgets at a provincial level. It was a good day. We did have an opportunity to have Honorable Carol James present at the end of the session, and she is a strong advocate of education, of course, as past BCSTA president. Spoke a lot about advocacy on behalf of education, how to walk the political field as advocates. Very good information, very full of gratitude for her time. And also, I'm also full of gratitude for our local MLA, Michelle Babchuk's time, for making some time in her schedule to meet with me individually to discuss some local issues that pertain here to our school district.
And that was the day, the picture that
The picture with Minister Singh. And Nanaimo, the chair of the Nanaimo board, we were kind of jostling. So we decided to take it together. On to 12B is the signing of the We Wai Kai local education agreement. So on October 30th, I was honored to be invited to join the Secretary Treasurer and our superintendent at the We Wai Kai council meeting at Quinsom Hall to sign our LEA agreement with them. Our LEA, of course, is our local education agreement. And what this agreement does is it speaks to the language of how we're going to step forward as stakeholders and how the school district will meet the needs of their children that live on reserve. I'd also like to take a second to thank Pam Lewis for her years of dedication at the Education Advisory Council. She has been long committed to enhancing student outcomes for the We Wai Kai Nation, and she is retiring. So thank you, Pam, for your service and your time helping kids here locally. Okay, so there are no further educational issues. On to business administration. So, oh, I'm sorry, Joyce.
Do we get to see the agreement, the LEA, when does the board get to actually see that?
So it was negotiated between the secretary treasurer and the education coordinator at We Wai Kai, I believe.
Okay.
But I believe that,
So it's confidential between the board and the band, between the nation. It can be shared with, trustees though.
Mhm.
So, yes, so not a public document, but yes, it can be shared, to staff who work with, students from We Wai Kai as well as with the board.
Okay, thank you.
so on to 14A, finance warrants. So, the finance warrants, as you know, are pretty standard, practice here in SC 72. The accounting department does present us with a monthly report on our, balances and debits. It is considered really good practice by financial education overseers. So on to finance warrant number 1, which was dated July 31st, 2023. And that finance warrant, or the motion reads that the finance warrant number 1 dated July 31st, 23 be accepted as presented. May I have a mover? Yes. Trustee Harper, I'm sorry. Seconded. Trustee Briggs. All those in favor? And on to finance warrant number 2, that finance warrant number 2 dated August 31st, 2023 be accepted as presented. Trustee Gillis, trustee Gladish, all those in favor? And finally, that the finance warrant number 3 dated September 30th, 2023 be accepted as presented. Trustee Briggs, trustee McMahon, all those in favor? Way to go, guys. Almost everybody got in on those. Well done. Yes, it's so. So on to committee reports, 15A. BC School Trustees Provincial County meeting, council meeting. Trustee Gillis.
Well, it was an honor to attend the provincial council on October 21st on behalf of our school district. And as in past, it's an opportunity to share some current topics and themes that pertain to all 60 school districts. And a chance also to be inspired by some very knowledgeable speakers and an opportunity to debate resolutions that impact, in many cases, all of our school districts and certainly our students. There was a feature to begin with, a spotlight on the Métis and some historical and current context that was provided by Charlene Waddell from the Ministry of Education. But get this name here, Rosie Darling, this student, she's probably 5 or 6 years old. She does a 4.5-minute video on the history of the Métis. And if you YouTube it, she will enchant you, she will inform you, she will educate you, and we were just all gobsmacked by this, the audacity and the precociousness and the sweetness of this young girl. Suzanne Hoffman, as you know, our CEO, and Carolyn Brody, president, both provide updates about work done in conjunction with the Canadian School Trustees Association. And it was acknowledged that often current boards don't reflect the diversity of their communities, but it was noted that BC is unique in having Finesc as such a close partner. We're quite unique throughout the country. Just to give you some highlights, time was also devoted to the framework for continuous improvement, opportunities that boards will have for sessions, learning guides available on the portal, much of the work of Joe Corona in providing information pertaining to relations with First Nations or Indigenous nations. Again, focus on the K-12 reporting policy overview and the fact that their implementation supports it for parents in the form of a webinar series. And there have been 8 language translations, but as was noted, there are sometimes some embarrassing translations. So we have to be very careful. Certain words that were inappropriate ended up in some of the translations. So that was raised on the floor. And then we had a stimulating data management evidence for data decision-making by Jeremy Higgs from the analytics office. I know that's got most of you on the edge of your seats, but it was very, I found it was really interesting because what he was trying to do is open our eyes to a lot of the data that is already gathered, collected for us, and some different portals and some ways of accessing that data, especially when we're looking at things like our strategic plan and we're looking at measures that we want to draw on so that we have a sense of our own progress. Finally, I just wanted to say that there were 3 key motions at the provincial council. And I was just going to give you since we have plenty of time. The first one was basically, and this was 100% approval, that the BCSTA request the government supports the creation of a working group consisting of BCSTA ministries, rights holders, and partner groups to prepare a recommendation to the Ministry of Finance that will provide incentives for child and youth mental health clinicians, as well as Indigenous practitioners to locate rural and isolated communities to meet the needs of children and youth in said committees. The second one pertains specifically to us. There are 4 districts. This was called basically the pay equity. And years ago, I gather our school district, being a very progressive and I think equitable district, looked at making some adjustments in salaries, particularly I think it was to QP workers, to ensure that gender did not impact people's level of pay. And since that time, the ministry has been giving some top up, I guess, basically to budgets, to budgets for districts that hadn't been able to be as proactive as we were. So a little bit nerve-wracking because I have to speak first of all to why it was an important emergent resolution, but we did pass that with 62%. So that and it only impacted 4 districts. So we weren't certain that that was going to have the support of others. And then the final one, I think I'll just read this out if that's okay. Yes. And this was that, be it resolved, the BCSTA urged the Honorable Ratna Singh, Minister of Education and Childcare, to write a letter and release a statement committing to the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion in the BC school system, including the human rights of transgender and other Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ students and staff, as well as addressing the misinformation being disseminated publicly regarding SOGI 123 resources. And there was a very strong focus on that distinction between resources and curriculum. And some very impassioned and very moving speakers, I think, who helped address that and make us realize that we are here for all students throughout our province. And so that wraps up some highlights from the provincial council. And I'm just saying that you never get to move or second, because I think the technology piece I have is about 2 minutes behind everybody else. Just saying. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gillis.
Yes.
Do you mind just reading that first motion one more time? Because I just want to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
I kind of lost that last bit of it.
Here it is. Okay. The BCSTA requests that government supports the creation of a working group consisting of BCSTA, applicable ministries, rights holders, and partner groups to prepare a recommendation to the Ministry of Finance that will provide incentives for child and youth mental health clinicians, as well as Indigenous practitioners to locate in rural and other communities to meet the needs of children and youth in said communities. The work is desired to be completed prior to the tabling of the provincial budget in 2024. And if I could speak to that,
Okay,
I think
sure.
there have definitely been some recognition that there is a growing concern around mental health and the supports that are available, particularly in our more rural areas, although I think it's from. And they want to see this as not an add-on or a let's help this for a year, but let's look at this as a consistent and ongoing concern that we need to address through our budgeting process.
Okay.
That's as I.
So maybe it's staffing,
Yes,
okay,
it could be any one of a number
all right, okay, good to know, thanks.
Any other further questions for Vice Chair Gillis? Okay, seeing none, moving on to 15B and Vice Chair Gillis, you're on the hot seat again with the October 24th city.
Yeah, the city liaison meeting. There are a number of topics, and for those who may not be familiar with the process, but a couple of times in a year, there are representatives from the city and representatives from our school district who meet to discuss some ways of partnering and to possibly raise to one another's view some concerns or some issues that we might tackle together. And the one was the discussion of potential dog park sites, but at this point, no joint property that would likely be available. We could see a request from youth soccer to potentially remake the lower Rogron field to artificial turf, but it was also acknowledged that would require significant community fundraising campaign. One of our biggest focuses was just on traffic flow in key school areas, and we were really looking at that corridor along Peterson, and then Peterson, Cheviot up to Ripple Rock, and the concern that at this point there aren't sidewalks between Peterson and Cheviot, along Cheviot to Ripple Rock School. However, it is recognized that that is part of the transportation plan, and I think there's a lot of building going on there, and so it is in the transportation plan ultimately. It was decided that a group of us would walk some of the areas, and so we chose both Ripple Rock and Carey High. Spent about 2.5 hours. I was with Councillor Susan Sinnott and Doug Chapman, and then the city Melissa Heidemann. And we basically just surveyed the flow of traffic around Ripple Rock because again, what many of you will probably predict, it's really intense for about 15 to 20 minutes and then it subsides. But certainly looking at the importance of keeping an eye on that whole flow there because there is so much building taking place in that area. And that's probably going to intensify the traffic challenges. Then we went on to Carey High, took the back path from Evergreen up behind to see one of the routes that students sometimes take, and then spent a considerable amount of time just along Dogwood there, which seems to be a pretty intense corridor at all times. Notice that students do tend to like to cross at the midpoint between the two crosswalks. Not sure if there is any kind of a solution to that. There was a suggestion at one point, should that become, I don't believe it is marked as a school zone. And so the traffic does tend to flow at whatever rate it wants to flow at. But there were no clear recommendations, but there was an agreement that there are other places that we should visit to get a better sense. So there will be a second 2.5 hour walk coming up in the future. Then just I'd asked for an update on Youth Advisory Council because the city at one time had a fairly robust advisory council. And I don't believe that, well, they are remounting it. It's because it, during COVID kind of disintegrated, but I think it's back up. And I know that Superintendent Manning's, student council and so on, student advisory council, there might be some work or the possibility to see two groups, if they are indeed separate, to work together as we were. Well, I think that's primarily, there were a couple of other topics. One that right near the end was, of course, discussion of shared services, identifying what types of partnerships we might explore for contracting services between the school district and the city. And that could be areas like snow removal, waste collection, security. I think some of those are partially partnerships already. So I believe that. Now, there were several other people that were at that meeting, so feel free to jump in and correct, or
I think you nailed it.
okay.
Well done.
Yeah.
Trustee Gladys?
I just wanted to give you a suggestion for your
Yeah.
next meeting. I talked about this a little bit earlier, and that is another possible walk for your group. There's a walk called Walk With Me, and it's on the website walkwithme.ca with Shonda Kerr, and
Okay.
you walk through the downtown side and just sort of have a real look and have a lunch with some of the unhoused people down there as a
Thank
way
you.
to kind of, get a feel and an understanding of that population that many walk straight past and don't look at it and don't meet their eyes, but it would be a nice walk for you. And it's not 2.5 hours and you get soup at the
And
end.
I'd be reunited with my grade 4 student.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing such amazing work in this community. isn't
Yeah.
he? Yes, thank you.
I'd like to hear the stories of them in grade 4 though.
Thank you very
He's
much.
an independent.
Trustees. On to 15C, which is again me, and it's the BCPC meeting. So on November 2nd, 3rd, I currently sit as the BCPC board rep, and I attended along with 3 members of our HR department, their local or their annual symposium. This year I felt was more attuned to trustee needs. I did attend last year and it was very heavy HR focused. So some of the key themes centered around supporting employee health and wellness through forward-thinking HR practices, building HR policies that were compliant and culturally aligned, and the ways that you may engage with your communities or your rights holders groups on how to properly align your HR policies, and psychological health and safety. We did have some discussions around upcoming contract negotiations, and overall, I felt it was a valuable conference. I'm glad that I attended, and that's about it. Any questions? All right. So is there any other business? Is there any questions from the gallery or anyone present at this meeting?
No, there are not.
So seeing none, Trustee Hagan,
I can move adjournment.
thank you.